This is the story of Dan Brown, the only child of Doug and Lois Brown. He was a healthy kid, enjoyed life. If anything was happening during his school years, you could bet Dan would be there, and usually intimately involved in the activity. He was student body president, played football, baseball, basketball, and even managed to get cast in one of the plays the school put on each year. But it was his skills on the basketball court that put him through college, where he majored in communication and marketing. During Dan's senior year of school, he met Diane, a young woman studying to become an RN. He hurt his ankle during a game, and when he went in to get x-rays, she was the doctor's assistant. It was love at first sight. From that moment on, you never saw one without the other. Dan graduated later that year and was offered a position as a marketing assistant with Enterprise Marketing Solutions, the company he had interned with. Diane graduated 1 year later, and they married at the end of the summer. After the honeymoon, Diane began working in the medical clinic for State Family Health Systems. They were both looking forward to experiencing everything life had in store for them.
What do you think of this guy? He's got it all together, doesn't he? Great career, married to a beautiful woman he met in college, Diane. He and Diane, they go to church just down the street from here. Diane, she helps out with the children's ministry, and Dan, he's on the tech team. They host a small group for young couples out of their home, and because they both went to school on scholarships, the only debt they have to speak of is the mortgage for the home. Yeah, these two, they have it all together. You could put them on a poster board as the all-American couple. And it doesn't stop there.
4 years later, and with the exception of the few fights that all couples go through, Dan and Diane have continued with their storybook life. Diane is still working with the same clinic, and 2 years ago, Dan was moved from marketing assistant to an actual project team. His next step is the one that he and Diane are looking forward to. Once Dan becomes lead on a project team, Diane will be able to quit work, and they can begin working on that family they've been dreaming of.
Talk about a perfect timeline. Dan graduates college by the time he's 22. He and Diane marry at 23, receives his magic promotion by the time he's 27. Now, if everything continues according to schedule, they'll have the first child by the time they're 28, maybe 29. The next one 2 or 3 years later. Both kids will be out of school before the happy couple turns 50. 4 years later, done with college and on to lives of their own. Meanwhile, Dan has a retirement plan that will allow him to do just that by the time he's 60. But he's looking to make a few adjustments, push it up to 55. That way he and Diane can travel that much longer while they're young and can still enjoy it. You know, most couples, they can't make this happen. Life usually throws a curveball somewhere along the line. But not with these two. Everything's already set in motion.
Just 2 weeks after they decide to have children, Dan came home from work and received the good news. It turns out the baby decided to come into this world about a month before they chose to have one. Time flew by rather quickly as they frantically began making changes to adjust to their new life. Before they knew it, 9 months had flown by, and little Elizabeth's room was decorated. Yes, Elizabeth. They were going to have a baby girl. They decided to name her after Diane's mother. If it were a boy, the name would have been Doug, after Dan's dad.
November 10th, 1995, at 5:30 in the morning. Dan and Diane become the proud parents of a beautiful baby girl, Elizabeth Marie. Oh, she was a beautiful kid. Full head of hair. She had her mother's eyes. 2 days later, Dan came to the hospital, ready to pick them up and take them home. Ready to begin the rest of their lives together.
Consumes a home in Blair subdivision. Crews had a call for extra help from Bennington and Fort Calhoun fire departments. People who live close to the home says it moved quickly. Brandon Strine and Walt Anderson shot these photos showing the intensity of the fire. Strine says by the time rescue crews got there, the flames were too heavy to knock on the door.
The sheriff said that he tried to approach the house to see if anyone was inside, but it was too hot by the time he got there. He couldn't even get up to the front of the house.
That was the day he brought him home from the hospital. He had just finished unloading the car when Diane sent him to the store to get some things. Evidently, there was a gas leak. So when Diane went to light the stove, can't imagine what that would have been like for Dan. To be driving down the road and see all this commotion turning onto your street. As you continue to drive, you see everybody staring at you. Of course, it doesn't take you long to figure out that whatever's going on is happening at your house. Barricades are set up just a couple houses down from his. So he jumps out of the car and he starts running to the house. Just before he makes it to the front door, he gets hit by a couple of people. No! You gotta let me go! My girls are inside! Diane! Elizabeth, let me go! I've gotta get to him, Diane! When an officer hits him and he tells him they're already in an ambulance on the way to the hospital. Wait here, I'll get you a ride. Diane. Diane died on the way to the hospital. Elizabeth 2 days later.